All right, welcome to lesson 2.4. We're going to look at operations with scientific notation. So our objective for today is that I can add, subtract, multiply, and divide with scientific notation. I'm going to do some of these things by hand, but quick reminder, you have a you have a calculator in your box that you can use to support you with this lesson. All right, let's start with multiplying. So, with multiplying, our first step is to multiply coefficients. I'm going to go ahead and highlight our coefficients in yellow. Coefficients are the numbers that come before the multiplication. So here, 4.2 is our coefficient, and 3 is our coefficient. So step 1, I'm going to multiply our coefficients. We're going to do 4.2 times 3. And if I do this off to the side, 4.2 times 3, remember when multiplying by hand, you don't have to line up your decimal. 3 times 2 is 6. 3 times 4 is 12. We have one number to the right of the decimal, so I'm going to put our decimal right here. We end up with 12.6. And then step 2 is to add our exponents. I'm going to highlight those in blue. Our exponents are just these little guys right here, 7 and 2. If you remember from lesson 2.1, when we are multiplying numbers with the same base, 10, and different exponents, we just add the exponents and keep the base. So we have 12.6 times 10. Add our exponents, 7, 8, 9, to the 9th power. Boom, that was easy. Now remember, you can use the multiplication chart. You can use a calculator to do this piece right here. All right, let's look at dividing. When dividing, step 1 is to divide our coefficients. Here's our coefficients, 8.2 and 4.1. Now, we could do this the old-fashioned way. Top number goes inside our long division house, 8.2, divided by 4.1. We're going to move our decimal over, so we have, and I could rewrite this, 82 and 41. How many times can 41 fit into 82? Well, 1 can fit into 2 times. 4 can fit into 8 2 times. So I'm going to say 2. 41 times 2 is going to be 82. So our answer ends up being 2. And again, use a calculator. I made these numbers pretty nice and easy so that our long division piece is not too bad, should you choose to do long division. Next, we're going to subtract our exponents, because our rule when we have the same base with exponents and we're dividing is to subtract. So we have 2. We're going to keep the times 10 piece, and then we're going to do 4 minus negative 3. If you remember from 7th grade, when we have the double subtraction there, or when we subtract a negative, we can go back and turn it into a plus. So we end up with 4 plus 3, which is 7. So 8.2 times 10 to the 4th divided by 4.1 times 10 to the negative 3rd gives us 2 times 10 to the 7th power. Cool. Sometimes we might need to adjust the location of our decimal. In this case, we do not, because it was pretty straightforward. But in the future, we might. All right, let's look at adding. Here, before we do anything else, we have to adjust to the same exponent. Here we have 10 to the negative 9th, and here we have 10 to the negative 8th. Now, I need that to be the same number in order for us to add the things. So I'm going to change negative 9 And I'm going to make that a negative 8 by moving this decimal to the left one spot. So this becomes 0.87 times 10 to the negative 8. And I'm going to show you, because I did that on scratch paper to help me figure out what to do. So I wrote out 8.7 times 10 to the negative 9th. And then I went and I moved my decimal 9 places to the left and got 0.0000000087. Now, I needed to then take that decimal from here and move it 8 spaces to the right so that I could get a negative 8. So when I moved it back 8 spaces, I ended up with 1 space to the left in front of the 8. So 8.7 times 10 to the negative 9th is the same as 0.87 times 10 to the negative 8th. And I did that so I could figure out what the rule is. The rule is that you move your decimal to the left to decrease a negative exponent. So I move my decimal 1 place to the left. And it's okay if you cannot remember this piece. We will do lots of practice. All right, so now that we have the same exponent, we got negative 8 on both of our numbers here. We're going to add our coefficients. In this case, remember, our coefficients are these numbers out front. So I'm going to add 0.87 plus 2.2. We could set that up. 2.2, 0.87. Remember, when you are adding with decimals, it's important that you line up your decimals. I'm going to put my decimal down here. And then fill in zeros wherever there's a blank. 0 plus 7 is 7. 2 plus 8 is 10, and I carry my 1. 2 plus 0 plus 1 is 3. So we end up with 3.07. I'm going to copy that down here. We also keep our times 10, because this is scientific notation. And then our last step is to keep our exponent. So now that we have both of our exponents the same, we have negative 8 for both, we're going to keep negative 8. So 8.7 times 10 to the negative 9th plus 2.2 times 10 to the negative 8th gives us 3.07 times 10 to the negative 8th. All right. Lastly, let's look at subtraction, which is basically the same steps as addition, except this time we're going to subtract or take away. Step 1, we have to adjust to have the same exponent. Here we have to the 7th power versus to the 6th power. So to make this adjustment, just like I did before, I made a sticky note to help me figure it out. So I wrote out 7.2 times 10 to the 7th in standard notation. I moved my decimal 7 places to the right. And then I moved it back 6 places this time. And I noticed that I had to move my decimal to the right 1 space to decrease a positive exponent. So if I want to take 7 to a 6, I need to move my decimal 1 place to the right. So 7.2 becomes 72, and we could put the 0.0 if we want, it's not necessary, times 10 to the 6th power now. And again, if you don't remember how to shift one decimal, or shift one exponent here, that is A-okay. Next step is to subtract coefficients. So we're going to do 72 minus 3.1. And again, you can use a calculator for this. 72.0 minus 3.1. 0 cannot take away 1. Oh, and again, don't forget, line up your decimals here. 0 cannot take away 1. So you have to borrow. 2 becomes 1. 0 becomes 10. 10 minus 1 is 9. 1 can't take away 3, so you have to borrow from the 7 and make that a 6, which makes this an 11. 11 minus 3 is 8. 6 minus 0 is 6. So end up with 68.9. keep your times 10 because it is scientific notation. And our last step is to keep the exponent the same. So 6 and 6 stay. So 68.9 times 10 to the 6th. All right, go ahead and tackle your learn and do practice, and let me know if you have questions.